But this,
I'll be the judge of that.
if it's witty, if it's truly repartee,
Yeah.
I know you would. Well, in the morning with Doug and John. Morning, John.
Good morning, Doug. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. Do you know the show Patriot on Amazon Prime?
No, I actually looked for it on Netflix by your recommendation. I could not find it, and I lost interest and chose something else.
Amazon Prime. Do you pay for an Amazon Prime account, the $75 or $99 a year?
Yes, Doug.
It comes with video.
Mm-hmm.
This show is great. The character in it, wee bit of a spoiler alert. Just a little, not a spoiler alert. A wee bit of some fun in the show that I'm going to spoil for you early on. But they make fun of the question, how you doing? By people asking it all the time. And he always goes, pretty good. And he's clearly not doing pretty good. You know?
Yeah.
And at the end of the second season, he says to a guy, how you doing? And the guy goes, pretty good. And he goes, huh, that's my go-to line too. Pretty good. So now I say pretty good to people because I don't like the question. Whatever. I'm one of those people. And
well, I was just immediately deflecting the attention off of me to you.
Yes, that's what people
at
do
the beginning of this, so that
yeah,
you could struggle with the initial.
yeah. I have to answer the question.
Yeah.
But I look in people's eyes to see if they know the show Patriot, and if they know it deep enough to be like, I see what you did there. So,
I'm
actually pretty good.
Minnesotan vibe to that kind of sentiment, that thing.
How you doing?
Yeah, where you don't, you don't say if you're bumming out, but if you don't say if you're winning either. Because,
There's the number of times people won't let you give. I gave the pretty good to my friend the other day. Someone I know very well. He helps with my body.
What?
He helps with my body. He helps heal my body. He's a body healer. What? I'm like a Saudi prince. I've got a team. I have a team of people.
I could just hear someone like in Alabama listening to this. He's got a body healer. What kind of lily what?
What the hell is a body healer?
Okay, how did we get to, I'm sorry.
I don't know. So he said, how you doing? I said, pretty good. And he said, pretty good? Like the acceptable responses to the question, how you doing, are very limited.
Yes.
Yeah. Usually followed up by, sometimes people will say, how you doing? And then I'll say like, good morning. And they'll go, yeah, I'm good. like they're just, it's repartee. It's just a witty little banter back and forth. So anyway, but I am doing pretty good, I think. My leg has not come around after my surgery 18 months ago in the way that I would have liked.
Yeah,
I've got some anxiety around that. But
is it a resurgent of similar symptoms, or is it just
many of the similar symptoms?
Really?
Yeah, but partly because, and this is just a good life lesson, the instability in my arthritic hip, the joint, caused a whole lot of other weakness around my leg.
Sure.
I had accommodated with other leg strength in my groin and quad and things to sort of carry that. Since the surgery, the rest of my leg strength has diminished considerably because of not being able to for 2 years.
Yeah, for convalescence.
Yeah, almost convalescence. So now the rest of my leg and parts of your body, back and so on, that would be carrying for a bad hip are not up to par. So now it's worse. It's sort of worse than before. So many of the like weakness things that I feel have to do with having to strengthen my leg, which I think ultimately, unless I'm experiencing some sort of metal poisoning from my implant, that's where the panic comes in. Is where it's ultimately going to get more betterer than before. I don't know. Maybe not.
Can we rewind to the metal poisoning portion?
Yeah, I have a kind of implant that's made out of chromium and cobalt, like Wolverine. Mm-hmm. And in a small number of these implants that were put in improperly, there's leakage to a level that it damages the joint and the muscles around it with chromium poisoning.
Well, that's fucking horrible.
I don't. Now I'm going to have to rate this as explicit. I've learned that when we curse, I now have to put a different button, click a different button on the podcast. I don't know about the live stream. I don't think Facebook bothers at all with if you're being vulgar. But anyway,
Yeah, apparently your content is not on Facebook's priority.
You think they care? You think they care? I mean, how bad has that company become? Anyway, we can get to that in a minute, I guess. Yeah, anyway, so pretty good. Pretty good. How about you? It's been a while. It's been a month or more that we've been together.
It has.
Too long.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean, just too long to be away from you, Doug. And I'm sure the community feels the same way.
I'm sure they have. I'm sure people are saying, boy, if that guy could just make some more videos.
Yeah, doing all right. I was saying earlier, I got a little bit of bronchitis. And
truly, ain't nobody got time for that bronchitis?
Exactly, yeah. So,
what do you do for bronchitis? Do you take something? Do you?
Yeah, you can control the cough. They can give you some little. Have you ever heard those Tussin Pearls? It's a cough medicine that is like basically what all cough medicine is that actually works is drawn from. And it's something Butussin is the name of the stuff.
I know that brand.
And you're right, exactly. It's in the name of everything. But then you can get from a doctor these tiny little pills that's just that stuff, and you just take it. I mean, you don't chew it or anything like that, but it really it will knock out your cough. It's the only thing that'll work besides codeine, I think. Yeah. But and then they give you an inhaler to loosen that stuff up a little bit.
Wow, bronchitis.
Yeah.
Isn't that a spore or something? Isn't bronchitis like like it's not just a bad cough, right? It's not like, when you get a cough really, really bad. It's a different thing. It's something it's a bronchial spore. Is it not? Isn't it something in your lung?
No, it's a condition.
Oh, it's a condition
of the lungs that is around the bronchus, but it's just a
there's no spores involved.
There's no spores involved. It's just an inflammation that's usually caused by a virus or something like that.
I want to believe that you have spores. You have bronchial spores, little pussy pocket spores.
It's all that mushroom I'm ingesting. I may have inhaled some while I was eating it.
Yeah, that's probably not a great choice for you with your bronchial spores to be ingesting. Fungi. Quit with the fungi. Boy, everybody's into mushrooms these days.
Oh, really?
Oh, in my world. Wow. And not just the portobellas, like as a replacement for
right,
meat.
like the psilocybin mushrooms, right?
Yeah.
Well,
apparently it's the thing. Like as soon as the marijuana, as soon as the pot. It just sounds so patriot joke, but from that show. You're just gonna love this show so much.
Okay.
As soon as marijuana has now become accessible and legal, all the like people that many of the people that I love and know just want to be one step ahead, right? First it was craft beers. You're gonna
yeah,
right. You know what I'm saying. And then it was like,
give me some numbers.
Then it was a speakeasy, and then it's like, well, what's the forbidden chemical that's still safe?
It's on right. It's on the periphery, but
you don't want to fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
You don't want to fall off the cliff. So I just think that now that that's a bit passé.
The mushrooms?
No, the marijuana.
Oh, right.
That now it's anyway. I don't mean to say these are just hipsters chasing the next thing. I think they've tried and now they're moving on. They're stepping left, stepping right, two-stepping.
Well,
anyway, I just hear it all.
I'm all for
the
that safe exploration of those things, but but I would rather people choose those kinds of things out of a desire to broaden their mind and their awareness, and not just to escape from the day-to-day grind of.
Do you have any stories for us? Personal anecdotes or anything on
of psychedelics?
Yeah, well, I don't know people that No, I don't. I'm not bragging about that or complaining.
Well, I got a shitload of stories from high school. I could
Yeah,
talk
no,
about.
not. I mean, as do I. Not from that, but from other things in high school.
No, that stuff is still rather difficult to obtain. I mean, you've got to really know how to, where to go. I mean, and if you're really into it, like the craft beer people, you can actually buy mushroom spores over the internet, and you could grow your own.
That's where the spores came up. Yeah. Right, I think maybe some people are doing that,
and then it's kind of like a kombucha or holiday. What do we call that? Friendship bread.
Yeah,
because
break it off a piece and pass it out to your friends.
Once you start it, you can just break off, and it just keeps on growing. It just keeps on because it's
Well, I feel like the podcast should have like an occasional check-in from people doing this, where they call from like a burner phone that sounds real fuzzy, and they give us an update on that. Let's see if we can figure that out. The homegrown.
I'm calling from the alley outside of Volsock Speakeasy.
Totally, from their shrooming world. Anyway, if you haven't already noticed, maybe don't let the kids listen to this episode, especially some of you that I know listen to this with your kids in the car, because I might be talking about you.
And there's certain...
You don't want to lie to your kids when little Janie says, "Mommy, Doug and John talking about you." No, honey.
If I appear at least a bit cagey or resistant to fully engage in this conversation, Doug,
okay. Yes.
As I normally would want to do, I now have legal restrictions upon certain things that I can discuss, based upon certain obligations I am engaged in.
Wow. The government got to you. You've got they pulled up your dark past and they drew you into their web. You are you an informant? If I ask you, do you have to tell me if you're a government informant? Is that what you're getting at? Are you working for the
If I can't talk about me tripping balls last week on the air, I'm not going to be able to tell you if I'm a government informant.
I thought you had to, like a police officer, if you ask them.
That's not true.
Hey, I went and saw a film called Terror, which it's a documentary where the T is in parentheses.
I saw your little blurb on the Facebook about that, and I thought that whole scenario was, as an Enneagram 7, very entrapping in psychological pain.
Just my being there, or that the FBI is
the man who's
people?
who's in jail for like 32 years now.
Yeah, it's so that particular but what this was all about is how the FBI, in service of what's referred to as counterterrorism, tries to infiltrate what they believe to be terrorist activities in cells. Mm-hmm. Now, a great majority of this is done to people of color, but not exclusively. The same thing happens with white terrorist groups. It truly does, right? Mm-hmm. So there's many, and the FBI is involved in all kinds of this. No, that's you can't blow your nose in that. Okay. All right. So if you're not watching right now and you just listen to the podcast, I have one of those eyeglass cloths that that's silky.
Microfiber.
Yeah. There you go. John found it on the table and then started to bring it to his nose, and I interrupted.
Leapt on me like a Secret Service agent. Trying to hand a subpoena to Trump.
So anyway, this film is about follows an FBI informant who's informed on a number of occasions on his last duty, like 2014, 13 or 14, and he brings a documentary film crew with him without the FBI knowing. So they follow along while he tries to get the goods on a person in Pittsburgh.
Wow.
That's the storyline. And you see the inside, like they're showing him on the phone talking to the FBI. They're showing you the text exchanges, and then him with the person of interest that he's trying to, and he's describing how he has to suggest without entrapping. Like his example is, he doesn't use this in this because it's about counterterrorism, but it'd be like with a bank robber. You wouldn't say to someone, "Hey, you should rob that bank." You say to them, "Man, there's a lot of money in that bank from people that don't deserve to have it."
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
Yeah, and then someone's like, "Yeah, we should get that money." You think we should get that money? Like that's what you get to do. It's so shady. So anyway, that's the that's the story and all this, and I am so conflicted because on one hand, I 100% believe that many populations in this country are entrapped by the FBI based on racism and culturalism, belief that Muslim majority faiths and that Muslim majority traditions are prone to terrorism. On the other hand, Donald Trump was not entrapped, nor was Michael Cohen. Like not everything the FBI does. So I'm a picker and chooser on this one. And I think there's also people, in who have Muslim heritage that are trying to do harmful things, just as there are white men and women in this country who are trying to do harmful things. Like it's the desire to do harmful things is an equal opportunity activity amongst all the faiths and religions. But it's so I feel a little conflicted anytime being out like pushing on the FBI because I want the FBI to stay in high enough esteem to have their word be trusted so we can impeach a president who I believe is a criminal.
Mm-hmm. That's a fair weather FBI friend right there.
I am torn.
But
So anyway, that's what I did this week.
That does. I mean, that whole idea about having a film crew film you while you are working undercover for the government is pretty that's meta, and but then it also just kind of goes to show like how hard it is to track that. I mean, like to investigate. Terrorism and whatever that that's the length that you have to go to in order to get in there because it's just so it's very difficult.
Well, I'm going to be doing an interview with a friend of mine who's deeply connected to the 9 young Somali men here, some of whom were sent to prison for 10 years and 35 years and so on for terrorism charges, who he is absolutely convinced, and I've become convinced by him, that what happened to these young guys is they didn't have to go to great lengths in order to find the truth. They went to great lengths in order to create a false reality about these young guys. It's just heartbreaking.
And that was from Minneapolis, right?
Yeah, Minneapolis. They were called the Minneapolis 9 for a while. It's what Donald Trump was referring to when he said in that rally in Wisconsin about people in Minnesota. You know, we have to do something about immigration. You know what it's. You all know what I'm talking about. That's what he was referring to. Is that there was this big terrorist plot among young Somali men wanting to be ISIS infiltrator or ISIS partners or something. Yeah, it's just. Anyway, it's really it's the level at which culturalism and racism play through our society is just it's, and I know a lot of us have been saying it for years. Our ancestors said they clearly lived in a racist world, but man, it's bad, and it goes back a long way. And the thing is, all right, can I just editorialize for a minute? The thing is, people who are in positions of influence, especially governmental positions of influence, are around so long. Freaking Roger Stone got indicted this week.
Yeah.
He was hired by Nixon as a 19-year-old to go and to make a contribution against a candidate running in who was trying to become the Democratic nominee to run against Nixon. Or maybe it was even I think it was a Democratic nominee running against Nixon. Sent Roger Stone as a 19-year-old to go to Massachusetts and make a donation to him from like a communist organization. Like Roger Stone as a 19-year-old, right? But then my point being, he's still around. He's still the guy. He's the guy, that's up to this business now. Just these people hang around so long. This Governor Northam in Virginia, who had the picture in his medical yearbook come out.
Yeah.
1984.
I have mixed feelings about that.
You do?
I do.
Are you comfortable sharing them here? Or
Yeah, I am.
are you
I
unnerved?
am.
So the story for people who can't remember because they listened to this 2 weeks from now after we recorded it, and another news story has now replaced it. This person's the governor of Virginia.
Yeah.
And he's been a politico for a long while, older fella.
Democratic governor.
Democratic governor. And went to a medical school back in the 80s. And in his medical school yearbook, his page, he has a number of pictures. And one of them is a person in blackface with a person in a Ku Klux Klan outfit.
Yeah.
And that has now recently come out, and it's on his page. And then he said, well, I'm sorry I posed like that. And then said, on second consideration, that wasn't me. There's only one time I did dress up with blackface, and that was in a Michael Jackson-like skit at a dance thing. And I remember that so vividly, I certainly would have remembered some other time that I put blackface on, which is just outrageous. And people are saying, look, you no longer can carry in this current environment, current situation, the trust of the people of Virginia or the rest of the country. And it's a privilege to be a governor. It's not a right. And you have the right to redeem your reputation, but not to do so while holding the mantle of the governor, because had we all known about this before you were before the election happened, you wouldn't have been the nominee or had been elected. And you need to stand up, AKA or Allah. No, it's not like I'm saying Allah. I did say Allah, but I didn't mean it like that. Al Franken, where Al Franken said, look, having done those things, not meaning them in that way, but the way they've landed on everyone, I can no longer hold the trust of the good people of Minnesota as a senator. I'm going to resign.
Yeah, that was bullshit too. But here's my point. I did not see the press conference. Okay, so I am not going to defend anything about the governor that occurred at that press conference or afterwards.
Okay.
All right.
Fair enough.
Does a person who, for whatever motivation, and I'm sure that most people can't think of a earnest motivation for dressing in blackface, but if someone does that and has a photo taken of them, then that should that one incident then make it so they could never run for public office. Does
that render them unfit?
Exactly. And I think that it doesn't seem like there was any attempt by him to hide this or anything like that. I mean, it was in his medical school yearbook.
Right. He had choice about what pictures went in or something. I don't know. This is, back in 1984, it's a little hard for them to piece it all together, but and so anyway, I think it's possible that, that whatever they were, I don't know. I mean, it seems ludicrous that to me, I mean, even like, I graduated high school in 1984. Like, we would never dress in blackface. And I come from one of the most racist places in the country. Yeah, right.
I mean,
right.
Anyway, so is that it? Is it over, for someone who, does he have to, all of this things that people thought qualified him to be the governor, do those things suddenly now, is it, like a Jenga, it just all falls to the ground and because of that,
that's the question.
You're
right. No, it's exactly the question.
Is there redemption? Is there, if he would have came out and had been like, man, I got to tell you, where I grew up in the, the time that I lived or whatever, it's like, it seems like this behavior was accepted, all around. And times since, as I've grown into a mature man, I've realized that sort of stuff is, absurd. I don't know what, what mea culpa he could give that could redeem him. If one was possible.
No, I agree with you. So back in 1992, the question was, did Bill Clinton use marijuana?
Yeah.
And that was enough at the time, even back then, to say what kind of a guy would do such a thing. Well, that sort of has moved on. In 2000, the question was, did George W. Bush have a DWI? Did he do the thing that we would all say, look, that's just a thing you don't get to do and then become president? There's certain things that are in your history that certify you or decertify you. And our culture is all around on those things, right? I don't think a DWI is disqualifying now in the same way, especially if someone says, I was a reckless person, I've gone to AA, here's what I've done to make recompense for it. Marijuana was clearly like, that guy was just dodging, like, look, in the crowd I ran around with, it was acceptable. The problem here with that argument is there was no time in the 80s in which you get to say, as a person old enough to be in medical school, educated enough to be in medical school, to be saying, I thought blackface in a KKK outfit was appropriate. So appropriate that it ends up on my yearbook page. And I looked at that some point after graduating from medical school and didn't immediately make that an apology that I have been apologizing for 30 years. Yeah. Had the man said, I was apologizing for 30 years, this was such a treacherous mistake, I'm going to do everything I can to make up for it. Maybe. But in our current environment of the rise of racism in Virginia, with someone who needs to be championing all of these causes, there are some things that are in one's past that you say do disqualify you from that role as an elected official. I'm not saying he should be kicked out of the country. I'm not saying he should have his citizenship revoked. I'm not saying it's a crime that he should, be imprisoned for. But is it the kind of thing that once it's out and available, which is why we all have to say, look, the things we've done in our past that we want to point to on our resume and say this, I went to medical school, so you should trust me. Well, then it comes with the whole package, it seems to me. And I had an initial first response too and thought, look, if you're just digging around in the 1980s for any random picture that someone is in, but then the more you think about the impact of this, the cause of this isn't just random pictures. This isn't him at a kegger or something like, boy, you were a reckless young fellow, which we tolerate in our society, or, oh, hey, you ran fast and loose with reporting all of your summer income, on your tax. No, this was race in 1984 was a major issue in this country. There is no chance that a person of awakened conscience in 1984, especially someone who's a medical school student, should have been posing for a picture of with a person in a KKK outfit.
Well, now we're just re-prosecuting him for what he did back then, and I'm not denying that that a person did that. But but basically what we're saying is that we're holding ourselves not to a real ethical standard, but to some kind of fluid standard that just happens to be heightened at this time due to things that are happening in society. Now, look, I realize that the reaction is that, look, don't give this stuff an inch. Don't it can't. You just can't give that sort of thing a foothold. You can't be just a mild racist. It's it's not like I'm cool with everyone except Filipinos. That's I mean,
yeah, right.
So I understand that, and I'm not like trying to do that, but we are saying, because you did that once, you are now just a bad person from here on out.
No, you're not a bad person, but there's certain roles you can't hold with high confidence. That's the difference. The difference here
if you're
is,
a convicted murderer, I don't know if you're going to win this, the DA's office. If you could, if you're qualified to run for it.
And yeah, okay. So I just think there's two important points here. One is, it's not about good person, bad person. It's about, do you maintain the trust of the voters and the people across the country who want to trust our 52 governors in a particular way? That's the question here. Should you be an elected official in a particular way? Secondly, this is not a fluid standard. It was wrong in 1984 and everyone knew it. Like that photo, the reason there are 4 photos on his yearbook, the reason that one's in there is because it was scandalous. Now, and the fact that he was hanging around a group of people that were like, well, we're not bothered by that. You can't argue for a lifetime of caring about these issues and be like, well, I did sort of miss the blackface thing. Or I missed the KKK outfit thing in 1984. You are not looking look, and I think you can go back to the 1920s and just say, like, look, things that pitch as racism, there's no time that anyone in this country gets a pass on any, in my mind, on any single slave owning or racist attitude. There were people publicly against the ownership of other human beings, chattel slavery, racism, always in this country. And no one in this country was ever without the alternative that that's morally wrong. It has been argued against. We fought a civil war in great part to solve that argument in the 1860s. The founding of this country, they struggled with it in the 1700s. Yeah. So this idea, yeah, you're right. I get your point, atheist boy. That the point is, to me, you don't get a pass on this stuff. As well, back in 1984, who would have known? Really, 1984.
Doug, again, I'm not saying that.
But does it rise to the level of being disqualifiable? Right.
Well, I mean, it just in category. Apparently the
What's the statute of limitations on this thing? Right.
Apparently, the governor and his wife did not redeem themselves at the press conference. As they're still calling for his.
Well, that didn't go well at the press conference. Partly because he said, you know how I know it wasn't me, because the one time I did put blackface on was for this Michael Jackson thing. And I remember, as we all know, how hard it is to get shoe polish off your face. And reporters were like, no, I actually don't know how hard it is to get shoe polish off my face. What are you talking about? Like, so even that kind of a response. Now, if you buy his first statement, which was, having seen this picture, I apologize for, I don't know exact wording, but how racist, how hurtful, how harmful, and how wrong it was. The question now becomes, what things could you have done in 35 years ago that now should cause you to have to resign? Does someone get to say, I'm a different enough person now on this issue and on this topic that should not come back to haunt me? But I actually think there's people who are CEOs of companies who, if something like that came out, their board of directors would say, hey, look, we just, this does not represent the company well.
Oh, I think it would probably be even more so. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've really, this is not something that you don't represent this well. It's a privilege to work here. Thank you for your service. So our elected officials are the same way. We have this weird thing, though, with our elected officials, of which, I'm heavily engaged in all for it, where at one level we demean them as you're just nothing but a loser, cheater politician. And on the other side, we elevate them to such a high standard that we act as if you don't get to stay governor or a senator or the president of the United States, that somehow that's got to be a ontological statement about your horribleness. Like,
yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah,
you're saying.
Like, yeah, like you would have less problem if someone said you can't be the chairman of Walgreens any longer because
this man's got to feed his family.
Well, he's got a medical license. Sure, he can go back and.
I don't know that medical school.
But it is scary, and look, I know because as a older aged white man, I understand that a lot of us are like, wow, are we really going to be held to account for what? That's the whole point. Yeah, you really are going to be held to account for this stuff, right? And as people that are like running podcasts and things, I think about this all the time. What statements do you hold? But if I'm unwilling, if I'm unwilling to let my current life inform my future life, I really need to look at my current life. Seems to me. Now, you could recover. Some people have come out and they've said, look, I was an avid racist. Here's why I'm not anymore. The problem is when a guy goes, no, I was never a racist. which is his argument. I was never a racist. I have opposed racism with my whole being, my entire life. I have never, ever been one. That picture, what, like Hattie said, you know what? I was actually somebody who dabbled in that stuff. And over these 35 years, I've thought about that and would tell you that here's what I've done to rectify that. And that picture is an indication of a whole life that I used to lead. And here's why I don't. Then somebody would say, this guy has one of those redemption stories where some politicians, it's a little sketchy of some of these Southern politicians that used to be, KKK people and then renounced it and all that. I think they also should have probably stepped aside with less
and I think
admiration.
Probably the optics are even made worse in the fact that his blackface was like, Black Soul Man 70s. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
it's not like he was like,
no.
I was participating in
1930,
in a slavery reenactment, and we didn't have any black people, so they put me in shackles.
That's right. No. What were the conditions by which that photo could ever have been taken? When you thought at a costume party kind of event in 1984.
Yeah, it was like Black Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah, with a KKK guy next to you. I mean, this isn't like I used to watch Dukes of Hazzard, and as a kid, I didn't really know that the Confederate flag on the top of the what was the car called?
General Lee.
The General Lee, which now I'm like, yeah, seriously, ABC, seriously, right? No, he's a medical school person dressing up at like going to the work, or someone did, to find it. Where do you come up with a KKK outfit that is that authentic? I mean, that was the question I had. Did you see that thing?
Every other grandmother's got that pattern in their drawer somewhere.
That looked
in Virginia.
That looked awfully legitimate.
Oh, come on, Doug. They weren't like, had master seamstresses. They made them out of flour sacks and stuff.
No, that thing was done
Deluxe,
up. It was
Grand Wizard level.
Yeah, it wasn't
a horseback out in the field.
Yeah, I don't know if that guy's got a toga outfit on or a KKK outfit. It's not like what all the white sheet outfits look sloppy and the same.
This would be like at a formal KKK gathering of maybe some lieutenants and whatnot.
Yeah, like you keep that thing in a box.
Maybe it's had like some maybe a little embroidery around the seams there.
Yeah, David Duke has that kind.
Some piping.
Some
highlighting.
Well, I
piping.
guess. Wait till you watch the show Patriot again. That's 3 for 3. It's all about industrial piping.
Hey, you want to talk about TV?
Yeah.
All right. So I've watched some TV lately.
Have you?
Yeah. So you want to talk about some television shows?
Very much.
All right. Okay. The first one, and I don't have a slide for though, but I just saw it yesterday.
It's going to go up here.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just saw it yesterday, and it's on Netflix. These are all on Netflix, I think. It's called Russian Dolls. Are you familiar with it?
No, but it sounds like the Trump White House.
The chick from
the woman.
Orange is the New Black.
I don't know the show, but I've heard of it, but I don't know anyone on it.
Okay, she's the one with the curly red hair who kind of talks like this.
Okay. People know.
People will know. So she's the star of this. And so basically it's kind of like a Groundhog Day kind of thing where her and eventually another person are kind of trapped in this loop of reliving their life over and over again over a certain period of time.
Yeah.
And then as these cycles happen, things change, people evolve, story, plot lines, shift and change. And it's just a very illuminating, and we binge watch the whole thing. I mean, there's probably, I don't know, maybe 14 episodes or something like that.
That's a full season, yeah.
And
hour-long show?
I think
or
so.
Half hour? Did it take you 14 hours?
I was doing something else. So during the first part of it, so I came kind of in the middle of the series. But it's really, really good, and it's really entertaining. And if you're a shut-in or want to go on a mushroom bender or something like that, try to watch it all the way through.
Did you watch it on the Polar Vortex days?
No, I had to watch it yesterday.
Oh, yesterday.
Yeah. Yesterday. Maybe it's just 7 to 10 episodes or something like that.
Okay.
Anyway, Russian Dolls. You should check
Russian
it out.
Dolls.
Seriously.
I'm on it. I'm on it. Russian Dolls.
Oh, what happened? That wasn't supposed to happen.
We have new technology. You have to hit play. Yeah, we have new technology. That
Why is it doing that, Doug?
You're at the last slide.
What?
Are you on the last slide
Maybe.
instead of the first slide?
There we go. Jesus.
Yep.
All right.
See? Pray to him. He'll give you answers, John.
All right. Ted Bundy tapes.
Don't just...
Yeah, you want to talk about Jesus some more? You talk about Jesus. I'll talk about Ted Bundy. Okay?
Ted Bundy tapes.
Yeah. So if you were a kid in
So
the
wrong.
70s,
Yes.
in the 80s, you were aware of the Ted Bundy and the serial killer. you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
And but anyway, so near the end of his life, he arranged to with a reporter to like kind of set the story straight. His
As he deserved.
right, and so he's a master manipulator and a
Psychopath.
prolific serial killer. I mean, murderer
Right.
of women. And so if you can get over the just the nauseous premise of your own fascination towards this,
Right.
it's really good. It's really
And what
it's really
is
well
it?
done.
What is it? I mean, is it a video? Is it audio? What is it?
Oh no, so it's so that's the that's the vehicle that Ted makes these tapes.
But this is a TV show?
It's a TV show
Okay.
on Netflix, and it's a series, so it's something like 7 episodes
Okay.
or something like that. And so it with the tapes as the vehicle, it then like recreates like his childhood and everything that influenced him, and through the murderers, and this guy was wild because not only was he went on a murdering spree, got arrested, escaped from jail, got arrested again, escaped from jail a second time, went on another murdering spree, while he was I mean, it's really, really, really interesting. But
In California? Was he California?
it was in Seattle,
Okay.
in Utah, Colorado, and Florida.
Wow.
Over 30 people died. But anyway,
It's really sick.
it is.
Is
very sick.
the show too sick? Like, is it too much?
No, it's no. It's kind of on the same vibe as like an AMC Forensic Files kind of thing. A little
Okay.
bit better production.
It's not glorifying his.
No. This
Okay.
is because the creator who was sent in to interview him and everything like that, realizes that the whole point of Bundy doing this is to manipulate him, to try to tell some sort of sanitized story.
I see.
So it's not a sympathetic portrayal.
Okay.
Have you seen Netflix Explained?
No.
Oh, this is really great. I mean, so I don't know how many episodes, but it's maybe a couple of seasons out there. And each one is maybe about a half hour. It doesn't seem like it's that long, but they'll take these very different random topics and just really do a big coverage on it with many experts and research and stuff like that. I think it's actually a product of Vox.
Oh yeah.
That online
Yeah.
place, whatever. But this is really fantastic, and I think we binge watched this, and we probably watched like we watched 3 episodes, and then we were just so hungry for more information and the way that they present it.
Yeah. What topics were explained in the ones that you watched?
I mean, there's things about everything. Politics, sociology.
Is it one topic per episode? Or
Yes.
Is it, okay.
And so you could go through them. So
Yeah.
I think we got to about the 7th episode where I had to skip one because I wasn't interested in what it was. So that's explained. It's very, very good.
All right.
Okay, now this. If anyone has seen this, all right.
Okay. Polar.
First of all, I apologize, but okay. If you're like a healthy 14-year-old boy, like this is. Well, no. It's too mature for a 14-year-old. But there's something about the 14-year-old in me that likes this show. So this is Mads Mikkelsen, who was also in Hannibal and in a James Bond movie. Okay, this is based on a comic, you know, one of those big comics. And so anyway, he's a hitman who's getting ready to retire. And so he works for this company. Okay,
I just love that, like the domestic stories and the inner struggles
and listen
of a
how
retiring hitman.
Well, he works for this company that forces the hitmen to retire at age 50 because they don't want any old hitmen. And so
that's how I feel about politicians.
Well, but then they have a matching 401k that they will provide to the hitman upon his retirement.
Come on.
Yes. With the caveat that if the hitman dies, you know, after he retires, that then the company then becomes the
beneficiary.
The beneficiary. All right. So, but now there's a side. So this guy's going. He's got 14 days before he retires. But the guy who owns the company, who is, you know, he wants to sell his company to a larger conglomerate. But they're like, you're $25 million short to get what the company's worth. So then he hatches a plan to kill his old hitmen so that they don't have to pay them their pensions.
So these guys are a liability on the sale.
Exactly.
Like we're going to pay into this 401k for the next 30 years on this guy.
The purchasing company doesn't want to carry that overhead of those retirees into the deal. So
the story is how a hitman has a hit put out on him.
Right. So this is
wow.
You know, and so then, so there's this romance in it and whatever. But I've got to tell you, the thing that's going to really turn everybody off, it is interspersed with the most senseless, violent scenes of assassinations. So yeah, so if you're sensitive to comic book violence, there's plenty of that, because after all, the man is a hitman. And so he becomes aware of this plot, and then so, you know, they need to get rid of him anyway. So the very guilty pleasure.
I like it. Did you do you know the show? There's another show about a hitman. He's the person that was on the guy that was on Saturday Night Live, Bill Hader.
Yeah,
he's got a show with like a one word name.
It's not Bernie, but it's something
like that.
Yeah.
He's a hitman in that show, and dealing with.
The premise of that is like ludicrous, but I saw the
it's great.
I saw the preview to that, and I'm like, okay, he can pull off being a hitman. And I just got one more.
I thought you were done. Yeah.
No.
Okay. Oh, heard about this.
You must see this show.
I've heard about this. Bill Murray stories.
So, you know, we were just kind of sitting around and like, okay, let's check this out, right? And so when it first starts, you know, it's kind of like this guy, hey, you know, there's these Bill Murray memes and da-da-da. And it's very kind of immature in the very beginning. You're like, is this just going to be like, you know, someone, you know, posting, you know, YouTube videos and filming it and saying that's a documentary of them talking about Bill Murray, you know. This documentary blooms into this very, very philosophical meaning of life exploration, what motivates us, what brings us joy, why would this random appearance of this person, suddenly, like change people's lives in which they have this moment that they never,
So what someone told me about this show is that apparently Bill Murray is quite famous for just showing up at ordinary things in people's lives, not being filmed or recorded. He's just spent years going to birthday parties or going to someone's home or making dinner for them, or right? Is that what this is? That Bill Murray has a long legacy, and someone wants to document if this is actually true that Bill Murray has done these things. Is that the show?
Yeah. So for basically about the past 20 years, he's conducted his life without a manager or without an agent, and merely has a 1-800 number that people can call, and with an answering machine to which they would submit their ideas. And we're talking like even like, like Sofia Coppola, when they were making, I can't remember the name of the movie where they made with him and Scarlett Johansson in Japan.
She had to call the number and leave a message.
Called the number, left a message, had no idea, that he was even going to show, to be there, and he actually showed up, and they were able to film the movie. That's kind of how elusive he is, but, and so growing up, as in the 70s and 80s, and seeing Bill Murray on Saturday Night Live, and I have a little bit more kind of ownership with who he is as an actor and stuff like that. But in recent times, he just does randomly just show up to different things, to people's birthday parties, or to sing karaoke, or one time in the movie there's this story where he's in a cab with the driver, and he asks the driver, is this what you do full time? And he's like, no, I'm really a musician. He's like, really? Well, what do you play? And he's like, the sax.
This is Bill Murray's the driver?
No, Bill Murray's in the cab.
Okay.
And he's talking to the driver.
I see.
And the driver says, well, I play the saxophone, but I really don't have any time to practice. He's like, man, well, you really need to make time to practice that sax. And the driver's like, yeah. So Bill Murray's like, pull over. So Bill Murray gets in the car. He drives this guy around for like 4 hours. Like, when he does these things, he just doesn't appear. He's there for 5 minutes, and
the guy's practicing the saxophone in the back?
In the back seat.
Is someone filming this, or the guy's retelling the story?
He's retelling this, and Bill Murray actually retells the story as well.
Oh.
But the saxophone player's like, but I mean, we were just driving around. Like, we stopped off and got barbecue, and it was like, but anyway, and Bill Murray says he likes to do these sorts of things when he feels like he needs a wake up. He needs to get into life, He's like, man, I haven't left my house in 4 days. I need to get woken up.
Wow.
So and there's such a great philosophical undercurrent in this. It's
I love it.
Really wonderful. Really wonderful.
I've been hearing about that show from a couple of people, so it's now on the list. All Netflix available.
Yes.
All these shows. Well, when you start a new show, which sounds like you at least go in some seasons where you're willing to take a look at some new shows, how long do you give it before you decide, no, we're not going, we're not staying with this? Like this Bill Murray one, you started in a little soft.
Yeah.
I don't know what this is. The first few episodes, or the first was, I don't know what this is going to be. How long do you give it? What's the John and Robin?
Well, I mean, Robin will probably watch many episodes before she gives up on it. I'm probably maybe 15 minutes in.
Oh,
yeah, because then you could kind of tell how it's directed, what the art direction is like. Does it really place the story in an authentic environment? What the kind of dialogue is you can expect for the rest of the series. Obviously, they're introducing the characters for the first time, so how they want you to view them are going to be demonstrated within those first few moments. So,
yeah.
But I also realize too, even now, that some shows are more slow burns.
Yes.
And we should give them the time, to do that. So like The Americans is like that.
Yeah.
And so is Ozarks, so. That's something where you want to follow, this story, because not everything's got to, have to have a certain tempo in order to be.
I remember we were sitting together, and the first episode of Walking Dead came on. Remember that the opening bit, and somewhere either after the first episode or somewhere in the middle, you looked over and said, "All right, this is a winner." Like it had what it, and then I was bored with it after the first season. Like it was, it came out of the chutes fast. I thought I'm all in, and then I was just quickly like, this is clearly going nowhere. This is they've latched onto something, and there's no story here.
Yeah, well, the last couple of seasons have been that way. That's for sure.
Have they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, that's how it goes, right? Like it's a good solid script, 3 seasons worth. It seems to me, maybe 4.
That's why Luther was so good when it first came out. Did you see that?
Yeah. I liked it a lot. I think all those shows. I just think if they tell you this is going to be, any of those whatever those seasonal shows, Fargo, the detective one,
True Detective. That's really good.
You know what the new one?
Yes.
The third one.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what like it's going somewhere. There's a promise. These ones that just linger, new characters. It's the Lost problem, the show Lost, right? Like then they're fighting to get back to some early narrative they had, and it's just anyway.
I think it seems like characters lose their edge after a while, and they just become like overly sympathetic. Like remember in MASH, when we were kids,
So much.
I think those characters are like were so biting, but like by the 15th
Yes.
season or whatever, it was so preachy, and all the characters were so precious.
Yeah.
Now you've got Klinger, the drag queen, who's the moral center of this that episode, whereas before he's like just this kind of shocking character that would appear and disappear.
Yeah, he's supposed to be the guy that's calling mockery on the entire military and trying to get out of it.
Right. Now he's just like wearing fatigues and earrings. That's his whole
Yeah. I mean, how about that just as one of the conditioner public commentaries on non-gender normative life, right? Like they were doing something more there.
Yeah.
That character was very lovable. In some ways, you saw that he was trying to utilize non-normative behavior as being so objectionable to the military, right? Like there was some kind of commentary happening there that at the time I didn't really didn't really understand the level at which they were critiquing the fact that the military will recruit you to be its.
Because kind of both and with that, because he was trying to get a psychological discharge for being a transvestite. So that's kind of like but then the government wouldn't grant him that. Like, no, that's not reason.
Yeah. Yeah, or they didn't believe him.
Right.
They didn't believe. I think was the storyline in the show.
Yeah.
But the idea that the military acts as if it's the arbiter of if non-gender normative dressing and behaving is a psychological damage that would prevent you from having to serve in the military. That it's an illness.
Yeah, probably in the 50s when
Totally.
it was in the books like that.
Oh,
so.
for sure. Oh, yeah. So was being gay and everything else. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. But they were soft. There was something happening in the commentary in the 70s and 80s about the 50s. They were making commentary, right? It was deeper than just
and that same mentality is being demonstrated in our government today towards transgendered people in the military.
Yeah, that they're making an argument that these people can't serve because there's something non-normative about them. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah,
I was on a rant this last couple of weeks about how many things feel like the 1970s. Partially because the state of Minnesota is trying to pass a resolution out of the legislature in support of the Equal Rights Amendment. The amendment to the Constitution that was a big deal when we were kids still has not been ratified.
I remember talking about that on the radio and being shocked that there was holdout states and whatnot.
Holdout states. I mean, the list of things that was happening a couple of weeks ago just felt like nothing has moved from the 70s. Climate, people still arguing about that. Gun control, women, racism, relationship with Russia and China. Like literally, it at some points you feel like we've come so far, and others you're like, these are perpetual issues that just will not. People will not tolerate that they've been settled. Well, and that's what this governor thing kind of brings up is, I wish it was a long time ago, 35 years.
The 2020 election, is that what it is? The 20, really 2020?
2020.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, you think people are going to play with that?
That's prophetic.
Do you have the vision? And it's the year that we've all thought about. That's the year when everything will be different. Doesn't it feel that way?
Yeah.
Remember back in the 90s, people were like, we're going to have a 2020 vision plan because it was cute and it was also long enough out. Like, what do you want the world to be like in 2020?
It's going to go right back to, I'll tell you what it's going to be like. It's going to go right back to like in the early 80s. And this will be a very sharp battle against fundamentalism, conservatism, and the most liberal political movements that we've seen. I mean, the abortion debate is gonna
It's back, yeah.
resurface like Jerry Falwell was leaving the charge.
Yep. I just don't know what
depressing.
It is depressing, and I just don't even know what the liberal and I am one and want to advocate for it, but it doesn't even seem truly liberal shocking, right? Like the things that to be tagged as a liberal that you advocate for are things that are just like, are we ready yet? Can we pay for it? Like they're not even mind opening and bending. I mean, I blame this on the Bernie Sanders approach, where his big liberal push was a $15 minimum wage. Like what? How about like basic income? That seems provocative.
Yeah.
Or free community college tuition. Wow, I am a real bold liberal. I'm going to say that the kids don't have to pay for just the tuition portion of community colleges, which is ultimately what his plan was. That was heralded as liberal. Like, it's crazy. You got to pay people a poor person's wage everywhere in the country and act like that's a real win. And look, I do think we should have a $15 minimum wage, but that should be because that's just obvious and boring and non-liberal.
All right, so I mean, I know you're using this as an opportunity to throw Bernie into the wood chipper, and I'm cool with that.
Well,
but
I'm just saying it's not liberal. It can be whatever it is, but let's stop acting like that's the edge.
But would we hope that with the absurd behavior of the president and his double-mindedness and his incongruity and his behavior would as people accept that as being normal? Like, I mean, it's incredible to me that people are worshiping today, and with their Trump stickers on their car, and they and they could bring those things together so smoothly. But could the same move our minds towards these more progressive and liberal ideas? Since, Trump's behavior and activity is not as bizarre as it to us as it should be. Should some of these other ideas be less bizarre because things are just nuts now?
Yeah. He's dumbed it down where now not advocating for a physical barrier for the purpose of keeping people out makes you feel like you're a liberal. Now, look, there can be all kinds of arguments for why you might want to have a wall on the border. Mm-hmm. As in, we want to be sure that when people are coming in, we're keeping track of them. And you can say the reason we want to have a wall is to keep people out. You build all kinds of different walls in your house, right? Mm-hmm. If you're building a wall to keep people out or to keep people in, that's different than we're trying to build a structure in which we want to have the entry points be defined. If what Donald Trump was arguing was, of course we have to have defined places where you're going to come in, well, that would be awesome. Everyone's always said that. Don't want them just coming across the river. Let's have them just come in through Now, I would argue, let's not limit the number of people who come in, like Mexico doesn't limit the number of Americans who go into Mexico.
Yeah.
They're a country. Canada doesn't limit the number of people that go into Canada. So anyway, but the idea
both
that
those places suck, man. No one wants to go there.
Yeah, unless you go there, you're like, it's kind of awesome, Mexico. Thanks. Hey, Canada, this is great. Let's go to Toronto. The point being, yes, Donald Trump can sort of narrow this thing down. That's my fear of progressivism. Just to stay on the 70s rant for a moment. You know this idea of basic minimum income?
Yeah.
BMI, some people call it. Mm-hmm. Do you know Richard Nixon advocated for that?
Hopefully it makes more sense than BMI does.
Body mass index?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I am obese. Richard Nixon argued for basic minimum income as an alternative to the minimum wage. Richard Nixon, a conservative, joined in the argument with Martin Luther King Jr. for that as the way to solve poverty. So the idea that now somebody says we should have a basic minimum income in this country, and that just like we pay, and I've rattled off all the people that receive this already, people that are on Medicare or people that are on Social Security, people that get a pension from the government, lots of them. Just make that true for everyone and let that become the base of our country. And then you can eliminate a whole lot of other things. You take all the money from all these other programs that we're handpicking and just restructure how we're distributing that. That was a conservative idea. The idea that now ranks as liberal, that's what drives me crazy. Is that these ideas, or that gun limitation and gun control, which conservatives held to, or equal access to health care, including abortion for women, was championed by the Evangelical Association in the 1970s, as well as conservatives. These ideas that we have now put in the category of super liberal socialists were conservative ideas. Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush were arguing about which of them had a more lenient amnesty program when they were seeking the nomination in 1980. These are all conservative leftover ideas. Mitt Romney pushed Medicare for all in Massachusetts.
Well, that just goes to show you how
this is what kills me about
how effective the conservatives have been in changing the narrative about those things.
It just drives me crazy.
Anything current politics you want to talk about, Doug? Anything happening with the president?
Let's just talk about that. Let's make that an installment, since we're in the presidential season.
Sure.
People are running for office.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite already? Do you got somebody that you got your eye on?
Howard Schultz? No, I'm just kidding.
Howard Schultz, yeah, no, he's an option. I really thought he was going to come out and run as a very bold, kind of liberal. Turns out he's like, no, it would be inauthentic for me to run as a Democrat in light of the current Democratic Party. Really? How about if you run as like a 1972 conservative, which now we call a liberal? You punk.
Yeah, he's way too cagey for me. Yeah, I don't know. Not really. I don't have anything against any of them.
Kamala Harris. Do you think much about her? Do you know who she is? She's a senator from California.
Yeah. She's cool.
Cory Booker. He got a bunch of attention.
Yeah, I just don't know how all that's going to play out. I mean, they're just going to end up eating themselves, and
yeah,
I just wish there was just a little bit more, focus.
Yeah, apparently the push on Cory Booker, and Shelley's a big fan. She really likes him. I'm iffy, but is that he's a bit of a lightweight and a bit of a will say whatever you need to say kind of guy. Not because he's disingenuous or inauthentic, but because he actually thinks there's just lots of really good ideas everywhere. And our election of our next president might not be the appetite. Apparently there's an adage from David Axelrod, who was the guy behind Obama's work.
Yeah,
that in elections, the axiom is voters don't vote for a replica; they vote for a remedy. So they want somebody that's going to solve a new problem that they've now seen, and I think the problem that people see now is that Donald Trump doesn't stand for anything. So they're really going to want somebody who stands for something, and as someone who has an indie-Democrat spirit, because I do think that all political parties do have a point. And you shouldn't write them off just solely because unless it's a libertarian, and I can like in my indie-Democrat spirit, I can't. There's no room for a libertarian.
Yeah,
there's no room. There's no room. We had that discussion.
Yeah,
as I like to say. But I don't think there's any appetite for the. I think someone being a fighter and a stand up for and a kick the door down, not a. I think people are looking for something different and they want to get beyond the divides. People don't want to get beyond the divides. We're not in a beyond the divide genre right now.
Yeah, and I think that I'm afraid that the the gap between what it takes to get elected and what the country needs are two different things. I think when you look at when Trump was running against against those other Republicans, they had no remedy. They had no response. They were incapable of
right. There was no big
navigating
idea.
that. Okay. And so I think that the person who, is going to win against this guy, I mean, aside from
Anybody who runs.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone who runs is going to win.
You're going to have to endure that. But I think right now, when whoever that person is who gets elected, is going to need to be a and this is where it might fall into Howard Schultz's hand, but need to have some expertise and some organizational acumen to be able to handle everything that has been dismantled.
Yes.
And help to put all of that back together in some sort of order. So I don't know if Cory Booker is the young man who can handle that, and plus try to make some sense of things that are happening internationally at the same time. I'm afraid we're talking about President Klobuchar, who might be the only one who can do that.
Yeah, maybe. And Cory Booker's a vegan, so I just don't trust his food choices. I just think he gets enough protein. I just think he's just going to be hungry. He's going to be hangry. He's going to lose focus midday.
Aspect of his thinking, it's just going to be clouded because he's a vegan animal product.
Yeah, because everywhere he goes, he's going to be like, well, I guess for him that might be the one period in life where he just has a fully balanced diet because they could make that available to him. Yeah, I'm with you 100%. There are 15 cabinet positions or 15 departments that a president oversees. Department of Labor, Health and Human Services, Treasury, the land one, the Justice Department, the Defense Department, HUD. There's 15. The President of the United States is a two-headed beast in our current society. The executive branch side of things, which you really do have to do well, and Donald Trump is a disaster. So it's being led. There's no synergy around those departments. They're just being eroded from the inside. So there's going to be, as you say, a whole lot of work to do to rebuild all of that. But then there's the role that the president plays in modern day politics, where the president is the pseudo political leader of our country, is a bully pulpit spokesperson, is some people call the leader of the free world, which I'm sure people in other free countries, which is the majority of the world, are offended by. But he plays a role where he's partially, the current president is partially, agitator and fathery figure uncle, something like this, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. That's a lot to do. This is why people say that the modern day presidency is extremely difficult, that you have to have sort of and I think Obama did not do a good job being the spokesperson for the country. He did a good job of defining his own brand, and people liked him. But I just find it shocking how limited the country's direction followed the leadership of President Obama.
Yeah.
It was in campaigns they did, and people thought very highly of him, but you don't hear a lot of people saying, you know why I think this? Because the president says that didn't happen. And it didn't happen. He didn't lead a whole movement across, where some presidents have done that sort of thing. I actually think Donald Trump sickeningly has done that very thing, that there's all these people that kids, that's okay. Kids wearing a "Make America Great" hat again when they're right. Say what you want about how horrible that is, which should be everything most of the day. At least there's a thing, At least there's a push. So you don't want a president that I think suffers from what Obama suffered from, which was stardom. You don't want the president to be so admired that he became a celebrity. And you certainly don't want it. We don't want a celebrity becoming the president. You want a president that has that kind of, I speak for and on behalf of you as a leader who does this particular work, but nobody's hanging dreamy pictures of you up in their house.
Yeah.
You know what I'm getting at? And I love the Obamas for all the things that they were and all the things they did. And Barack Obama was a good, solid president. But I feel like his side on getting some of the work done was pretty good. Some of it was not. But I think his role in the country was totally overshadowed by his celebrity. And that's a real problem. So how you get to a place where you're a leader, spokesperson, and can have people think with you the way you do and be a thought leader as the president without becoming a super celebrity, that's a real dilemma.
You know, like there's got to be, like, if you're starstruck by somebody,
Yeah.
There's got to be a part of you that knows that's ridiculous. So. But some people don't know that, and I think Trump has provided a pseudo, what do you call it, like a figurehead for their leadership, because, but maybe other people. So, but how do people who aren't as simply focused as who maybe naively believe this person really cares about me? But how does someone get energized behind, someone who is a package of ideals that they support?
Yes.
Does that look the same, or am I comparing, the same thing, or?
Well, yeah. So, I think there's something there. Like, is it about the idea that they champion, or is it about being enthralled with that person? And that's a real subtle line you sort of walk both sides of. You have to stand where like when you find a musician that you're into or a movie star or something, and they happen to articulate a position, you've started by admiring them and their work, or they're sort of, you're sort of starstruck by them.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, and they hold this position, so that position must have some credibility. Is different than saying, I'm really following this person because they really help me to engage and to think about things in a very positive way, and they're bringing about something in this world, and I sort of want to follow that, and because of that, they become attractive to you. That whatever that subtle difference, there has to be enough general attractiveness in a person that and I don't just mean that they're pretty or something, but that you would find yourself sort of like, no, that's somebody I'd like to listen to. I'd like to watch, and I'd like to be around. I'd like them. I'd do their thing. I'd go to the thing they're talking about. That's what you have to get to. And I'm not sure any of the candidates. I think Kamala Harris might have a bit of that. She's a little. I've watched her for a long time, and I think she will grow tiresome on people just because she's a little careful. And I like her. She doesn't grow tiresome to me, but I think some people might. Find her to be a bit calculating because she's bright and smart, and she is being careful because she understands the impact, and I think that grows. That might not be the remedy people want. They might like this guy Sherrod Brown. I don't know if you know him, but he's from Ohio, a senator from Ohio, white guy, kind of talks like Grover. He's got a throat problem.
Yeah, I think I've seen him on TV.
Real lives in Cleveland. He and his wife. He's a real sort of he's real progressive, super progressive, but kind of Bill Clinton, like small town America really matters. Dignity of work is kind of his thing. And he when he was a congressman and then as a senator, he buys his own insurance on the healthcare exchange. He doesn't take the government insurance because he's like, I'm going to be in with everybody else. Like, he's a little Joe Biden in the sense that, like, we're still paying for a mortgage on our house. My wife's a school teacher. I take the train. He's that guy.
Yeah.
But he's not 82 years old or however old Joe Biden is. So Sherrod Brown has a real chance, I think, to sort of make it through. He doesn't have that star-studded kind of you would never be around him and think, wow, he's super fantastic, or he's real dreamy. He's not that kind of guy at all.
What's interesting is to see, like, so many I guess what we would liberals would call strong candidates.
Yeah.
Between Warren, Harris, the Cory Booker, and maybe this Brown guy.
Yeah.
What will be the thing that knocks them out? Like, how what will be the decider for these folks to drop out? Will they go on like poll and poll response and the conventional wisdom of the country? Will they have to be knocked out through some sort of controversy? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What will or are they just going to like once they're in, they're just going to do a long race to the end, no matter how much damage they cause to each other and in the party?
Yeah, I think California moved up its primary into like February or something, I think. But it all boils down to in this world how much how many delegates you get that support you, and do you make the deals with the intra-party people, unions and teachers groups and nursing coalitions and all these people. That's how you have to have a significant ground game, or do what Bernie Sanders did, and that is to rise above all of that stuff in kind of a big populist move.
Yeah.
The problem with the populist move every single time is the populist move is always against your own party. It's never against your opponent. Mm-hmm. So it's a really, really dangerous thing to decide that you want to earn a nomination outside of the party infrastructure. It's because our country, for whatever you think of it, is a two-party system. It just is. And there's enough room for outliers, and there's enough room for flexibility within the parties. But it is a two-party system. It's not a populist system. That's not what we do in this country. We've decided on a representative form of government that's organized by a certain set of political institutions, some that are formal and some that are informal, like the DNC and the RNC. Those are informal. They're not built into the government per se. Right. But they're considered to be a major party, and that's how we're gonna get there. If you try to obtain the power of that system by another system, you're really asking for some trouble.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the Whig Party in different times in history when there were three parties,
yeah.
But those never had much. I guess early on it was that party affiliation was a little bit more fluid,
yeah.
and political, but it does seem like over time any kind of third party movement that has been there has come and gone and not had any substantial effect, and I'm probably in the beginning, the first,
and there are
25 years maybe.
Well, there are many parties, so we should. I should be a little more specific. There are, I don't know, whatever there are 5 or 7 formal parties in our country. Their ability to win a national election for president does not exist. The Green Party, the Independent Party, the Libertarian Party, all these parties that do exist, and you can engage with them whenever you want. There's candidates. For all these parties, Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, sat right there with Michael Flynn with Putin at that famous thing and did what she could to bring down the Democratic nominee. She worked really hard and helped to accomplish it. So those parties exist, and you can vote for them. When you go to vote and you look on your list of people you vote for, there's not just 2 parties. So people that want there to be a third party, there already is. They're just not going to win. That's not how we elect presidents in this country, is by third parties. So they exist, but that's not the way you win. What I'm getting at is within those 2 parties to try to have a populist uprising that doesn't honor and respect them, just doesn't understand the political system.
And that's so hard for a lot of people who really have a strong sense of justice, that they have to acquiesce to this kind of broken system in order to affect the change that they ultimately want, because it seems like they're participating in the corruption by participating in the system.
Well, if you get more people to think like you do, you'd be a major party. The thing is, these parties, they are single. They tend to be either single or small set of issues related. They have not built the infrastructure. They do not deserve to speak for the country because they don't speak for the country. This is my view of these parties. They've existed. They've been around for a long time. They've had their run at it. They've been trying, and people aren't interested in them. And they can't even keep their own parties. You know how hard it is to keep the Democratic or Republican parties together? It's a lot of effort and a lot of work, and you have to get a lot of people, and you have to be everywhere in the country to make that work. So if you want to do that, then go off and do that. And if you want to really, truly build it, then do the work and do all of the infrastructure building so that it becomes a true articulation. But to say like every 4 years you decide that here's a topic that you really want to vote for and you really don't care about the rest of it. Remember Gary Johnson and this guy that ran the independent? He's just like, no, I don't really care about international affairs. That's not really my thing. That's not what we're running on. Well, you're asking to be the president of the United States, and there's 15 cabinet positions, and one of those is the Secretary of State, the State Department.
Yeah.
And you have to. You can't say we don't really have. That's not our thing. We're an issues campaign that wants to present itself as a party. So I get real crabby about this when the third party people are like, yeah, but I mean my issue. And I see how I talk about them like that. I do. Yeah. I mean my issue. The thing that I care, I don't care about all the rest of that stuff. Well, then, I don't know, like become a PAC or something. Don't ask to be the president if you're going to say that 5 of the 15 departments that the executive branch is constitutionally responsible for, you don't care about. It's just, this is what gets me about, and find me a third party that says we actually care about all these things and we're going to be robust, and I'd be like, we should have a third party. There's none that are even close. They literally, I mean, you look on their own like party stated positions. I'm not picking on them. Like, well, they say it and I just didn't hear them. They often won't even they don't even address it at all, or they say that's not what we're about. What we're about is this single issue, and we want to use running for president to advocate that issue. A la Ross Perot, a la, who's the guy in 2000?
Ralph Nader.
Ralph Nader. I mean, great example, right? Great point to make. They both had a thing to say. The Green Party, they have things to say, for sure. Should you be doing that? I would argue Bernie Sanders is the same way. Bernie Sanders' argument for this country is far too limited. He does not talk about all the things that one would have to talk about as a president. He's not concerned about them. He's trying to make another point. Now, other people would argue, no, he is a fully fledged, full-on candidate. That's up for debate. But when people come, and this would be Howard Schultz and all the rest of these people, like, well, here's the thing that I think really matters. Here's why I'm running for president, because I care about That's where I'm just like, okay. You're not taking this thing seriously. It's like the person at your employee meeting that is on the fact that people keep making fish in the microwave, and they're going to start a campaign and they want to become the CEO of the company so people stop making fish in the microwave.
Hey, I'm with you, folks. I think that it'd be great if you could really.
That's why today I announced my candidacy as a candidate for the presidency of the United States. God, I can't wait to say that. I'm going to say that for real. Standing tall for America. Think that won't have all the sizes after me? What about the people who can't stand?
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I can't. That was going to be my campaign theme, and I realized I can't. I can't do that. It's crazy. It's sizeism. It's ableism.
Yeah, I don't know.
I do.
All I know is I see a lot of empty handicap parking spaces out there. So
no,
where are all the? I don't think it's a very strong block.
They should have as many available to them as they need. There should always be extra. It's like
there's always extra.
It's like funding for education. You should ask educators how much money do you need and give them $1 more. They never go over budget because you always give them $1 more. Do you remember the basketball player Ralph Sampson?
No.
Real tall guy back in the 80s, tallest guy in the NBA.
Yeah, African American.
Yeah, black guy.
Shocker.
Ralph Sampson. Yep.
Uh-huh.
He had built into his contract to be paid $1 more than the highest paid player in the league. His contract was highest paid player. So he said, I'm going to let the market decide how much that is, but I get paid $1 more than the other guy.
That's hilarious.
That's how we should set certain budgets in this country. And not our defense budget, because we don't need it, but our education budget, our housing budget for people that need housing.
You could go, hey, don't come whining to me.
Yeah.
I went above and beyond.
Above and beyond, yeah. How much do you need? I'll give you $1 more.
So don't lay that on me. If you get,
I mean that
you need to budget that shit.
And then other budgets should be curtailed, and then we can have an argument about what those are. And I think it's pretty clear which ones we should fund fully.
Yeah, man. A lot of money going to the military.
Which, look, if you have the right view of the economy, you realize that for the most part, the government doesn't own or make anything. So every dollar spent by the government goes into the macro economy.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
The people in the defense industries don't seem to spread that around. Right.
3 or 4 states.
So the billion, that's true. There's some places where they do, but the billions of dollars spent on weaponry and stuff, if portions of that from those industries was even utilized to care for health issues for those who need it, or basic minimum income.
Well, and they're smart, and they put those factories in certain parts of the country, so that if there's ever a move to limit the defense spending, then it's going to mean that the main employer, in
you're saying they've spread those around.
Yeah,
everybody's
because they build one little part of the thing and one little part over there, so that you got to keep those shops open. So,
well, I think we've almost hit afternoon. We have. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Doug. Is that 2 hours?
No,
an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Okay.
Hour and 30. If we hang out for a few seconds, it'll be an hour and 30.
Well, maybe next time, Doug, I'll be feeling a little more energetic.
Oh,
I'll be more convalesced myself.
Oh, I liked you today.
Oh, thank you, Doug.
Yeah.